Hey, everybody, and welcome to the For Female Founders podcast series, where we are helping women in business learn to thrive, not just survive. I am your host, Sarah Bundy, and today our guest is Julie Cole. Julie is the co-founder of Mabel's Labels, which is an e-commerce giant that she grew from scratch while raising 6 beautiful children along the way. She's an author, speaker, and otherwise great human. And she's here to talk to us today about what it's really like being an entrepreneur while also raising a family along the way. So Julie, welcome to the show.
Sarah, thank you for having me.
Yay. So happy that you're here. Oh my gosh, we have so many things to talk about and we have so many things to learn from you. You are such an anomaly, somebody that I actually look up to and have admired along your journey. And you know what? Raising a family of 6. We're going to have lots of questions about how to do that, especially while you're trying to run and grow a business from scratch. So let's jump into why did you start Mabel's Labels? What inspired you to become an entrepreneur in the first place?
Right. So a couple of things, really. So I was originally thinking I was going to be a lawyer for my whole life. But as you know, sometimes you have children and things change. And for me, that happened because actually my eldest child, who had just turned 3, was diagnosed with autism. And I just didn't think the traditional workforce would suit me any longer. And I needed a little more flexibility so that I could advocate and set up programs for him and do all that sort of good stuff. And he already had 2 younger siblings anyway, so it was pretty nutsy around here. But also, you know what, along with my co-founders who are, one is my sister and two of them are friends from university who went on to marry my brother and my young uncle. So there were 4 of us pals who, you know, we were talking about how there's not a good label product out there. We're using masking tape, permanent marker, and it comes off. And so we really did notice as young moms that there was a product missing from the market. So it was the combination of those things, you know, wanting to leave the traditional workforce and having a good business idea. And that was really the inspo behind Mabel's Labels. And I think that's often, you know, you see with like these moms who create businesses and are entrepreneurial, it's often because they're like, there's a problem, let's fix it. And also that need for flexibility once kiddos come along and wanting a little more flexibility at times too.
What were those first few years like for you when you were working with family, you were working with friends, you were juggling babies? Yeah. Explain to me, please, what a day-to-day would have looked like back then before Mabel's Labels really took off.
Yeah, look, it was like when I reflect back on those times, it's easy to kind of romanticize it because it was really fun. Like when you have an idea and you're building something up with friends from the ground up and you're all in the kind of the same space, just kind of getting through the day and raising kids. I mean, it did feel like a sport. We definitely were getting lots of dopamine hits and it was a lot of fun, but it was also obviously a lot of work. There was no sleep happening. I mean, I remember being in my sister's basement till 2 a.m. and then getting up with kids at 6 a.m., pregnant with my 4th. And just, you know, there was no like resting when it was nap time. It was, you know, it was just put the kids to bed and get back in the basement or get back on your laptop and do your work. So there was no like real sort of me time or, you know, no. And people tend to romanticize this. I talk about this all the time. People romanticize entrepreneurship. They think it's all TED Talks and book deals. And it really looks a lot like making labels in a stinky basement till 2 a.m. So it's not really all that glamorous. But if, you know, if you're that sort of, if you've got that appetite for risk and you've got a good idea and that's what kind of fills your cup and motivates you, then it can be a lot of fun.
What was that tipping point for you where you were working in that basement, that stinky basement? You have family and friends, you got kids, you're changing diapers, kids are having temper tantrums, no one is sleeping. At what point was there a tipping point where it got easier and the brand started to take off on its own? With Awin's marketing technology platform, you can easily discover the best partners who connect you with huge audiences of new customers. Understand how your partnerships are performing with intuitive reporting and only pay for the results you need. Start today and grow your own way with Awin.
I think like psychologically, we felt better when we had some, you know, after we launched and we saw our product out in the wild and we saw how the market was responding, we were like, oh, okay, maybe we're onto something. And that gave us real peace of mind because we're talking, we put a lot of sweat equity into this. We bootstrapped. So, this was us funding it. And luckily there were four of us to do that. So we could get all our little buttons and pocket lint and pull together enough to get some tech to build this thing. So I think, and the thing too is when you roll out a new product, you never know how the market's going to respond. And sometimes you have to educate the market that they need your product.
Right.
But for us and like our community and moms, I mean, just word of mouth, right? Like moms just boop, 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 Mabel's label. Somebody would see a kid's label on a lunchbox or on a water bottle or a sippy cup. And other moms were like, what is this? And also moms talk about products we like. Now, remember, 22 years ago was pre-social media. So it was really just, we got a few good press hits. We know there was a lot of chatter. Our mom community was doing the work for us by getting the word out. And we were very much a part of our community. And I think the secret sauce was we actually created the product that was needed and did what it said it would do. It literally, I mean, Sarah, you've had Mabel's labels, like they go through the dishwasher, they go through the microwave, they go through the washing machine, industrial washing machines, dryers. So knowing our market so well, because we were our market, was definitely an advantage. I would say the moment we actually felt we arrived was when the last of the four of us actually quit their day job. Because a few people were on mat leaves and maybe I'll try extending my mat leave for a year and see where we're at. And then eventually we're like, hold on, we can actually start paying ourselves and, be able to feed the humans and do things like that. So that was really that moment where we kind of defined it as our success when the last person quit their day job.
And how long did that take from when you guys started your company to when all four co-founders could quit their day jobs and do this?
That's a really great question. So I'm going to say I'm kind of guessing. I'd have to go to the Wayback Machine, but I kind of feel like maybe 4 years, 3 or 4 years. And also it was a little bit because that last person found that they could actually get a lot of Mabel work done during their real job. So, moms, we're resourceful, right?
Yes,
so we can be very productive at times, at strange times and in strange places. That's so awesome. Yeah, I don't think my sister who was on mat leave from teaching ever went back. And I don't think, I didn't ever go back. So it was, it was a little trickle effect, but it took a few years. And you got to remember too, when you make this leap that you're not getting a reliable paycheck, right? You're not getting, it can be entrepreneurship, can be feast or famine. And, you have to be prepared for that and manage your expectations and know what it's going to be like. You're going to do without that family holiday. You're not going to buy the new car. Those things are just a reality for those first few years.
Yeah. A great big thank you to our sponsors, PartnerStack. PartnerStack's ecosystem connects you to the world's largest B2B network for you to earn, connect, and grow. We're going to talk a little bit about the reality of what entrepreneurship is like, because it isn't all rainbows and butterflies.
That's right.
It's challenging. It's blood, sweat, and tears, and it's other bodily fluids if you have children and you're in cleanup mode constantly. But let's talk, before we go into that path, I'd like to know more about how the four of you chose who would do what role. You've become the spokesperson, you've become the face. What about the other three founders? How did you all kind of land into the thing that hit the ground running?
Right. Well, I think one of our, early indicators of success too, or one of the advantages we had, I'd say, is that we had four different brains coming to the table. So you had four different skill sets. You had some people who never wanted to talk to other people or be on camera or do anything like that. And then you had some people who couldn't read a P&L, So we had, four different careers coming together. And although in those early days, it was kind of all hands on deck, everybody did everything, or we probably at some point everybody did everything, but eventually you just naturally fell into, where your skill set was. And you just have to be careful, I think, when you have a partnership, that everybody's feeling like, the amount of work is like equally distributed, while also being flexible, knowing that somebody's going to have sick kids one day, somebody's going to have a baby one day. Like these things are going to happen. And that was the advantage also of being with people who love you and care about you and want to make sure that you're doing well and your family's well, is that, we were very there to cover for each other when necessary. But I think, I think just falling into your sort of natural zones of genius is what we ended up doing.
Let's talk about the timing of from when you started to when you actually got acquired, because you guys have been acquired, you have successfully exited, and you're still with the company today. Please talk us through what happened in that process and how did you pick your buyer and how long did that whole thing take?
So at the time, we were about probably 14, 15 years in business, and things were going well. We weren't actually thinking about selling at the time, but we were on the cusp of having to make a change, and we weren't quite sure what that was. And quite serendipitously, we get a call out of the blue from Avery, of course, who's a labeled giant, right? And they mentioned that they had been keeping an eye on us and they loved our brand. They loved what we had created. And they wanted to know if we wanted to have a discussion just to open that conversation. And so that was in July, and we did have that discussion and it went well. And we're like, maybe this is a good option, because we have been at this for 15 years. Some were feeling ready for a change. Our kids are getting a little bit older. Maybe we can, try out different things, toe dip in other areas. And so the conversation went well and the process went along, and eventually it just made sense. And the four of us were like, okay, well, if all the conditions are right, I'm on board with this. And that's how it went. Now, it went very smoothly, really. A lot of sales don't. But as I said, we had that conversation in July and we wrapped up at the end of December, which is very, very fast.
That's
and
so
most
fast.
Unusual. So yes, I would say for anybody who's thinking about exiting, make sure a couple of things that, a lot of people get left at the altar. Commonly, it's not a done deal until that money's in your bank.
Yes.
And the other thing too, I think a couple of like strong bits of advice I would share is that luckily with the four of us, our one partner, Mumby, we called her Mumby by her last name, Trisha Mumby, we kind of put her in charge of doing all of the talking and communicating with the buyer, because often what happens is companies who are going through the acquisition process, and if it falls through, they've spent so much time focused on that they haven't focused on the business. And if it doesn't come through, you come back to your business and you've, not made sales, you've lost clients, you've done all this stuff because you've been so distracted. So make sure that if you're going through this process, that you're also very much keeping your eye on the ball, which is your business, because you don't want that to, because if it doesn't work out, you still have to go back to that. Now, having said that, although we had Mumby doing those communications, we absolutely hired a lawyer to do all the negotiations. And that was smart for a couple of reasons. It's their job. It's what they do. They're good at it. They're better at it than us. And the second reason is that if conversation gets feisty with the buyer, and then there's a clause that you have to stick around for a year or two, you don't want to have a bad relationship with your now boss. So it's better for somebody else to do those negotiations, have the awkward conversations, then get in the bad books so that you can go into it fresh and have a good relationship with the person who acquired your company.
That's awesome advice. I appreciate that very much. And I've also gone through an acquisition and I appreciate the due diligence process. In our case, we actually 2 times had gone through due diligence process. First time fell through because we were supposed to go public with IPO, and 2 days before we went public with IPO, the Cambridge Analytica Facebook breach happened, and they pulled the plug because they didn't know what was happening with everyone's personal information. And then that first due diligence took about 12 months. And then second one, because COVID hit, took about 18 months because we had to pause things. So to your point, the fact that you had a due diligence process and from interest first, hello, nice to meet you, and I'm interested in, do you want to have this conversation in July, to a closed deal in December is so fast. And I can tell you that from personal experience. What I will also point out from personal experience is I imagine you were so buttoned up because you'd have to have your books in order. You'd have to have your systems in order. You would have to have everything documented. Things go into like a shared room.
For sure,
So how
Sarah.
did you
And
be
that
so organized before that?
100%. And that would be something I would say is keep your housekeeping in order, have every contract of, because it's in due diligence where the company will come back and say, oh, we unearthed this, because they're really looking under the covers there.
Right.
And if they find anything, they might say, okay, well, now we're going to offer you $1 million less or whatever. So
Right.
you want to make sure just keep your housekeeping in order the whole time so that eventually when you find yourself in due diligence, it can happen quickly. It can be with ease and you don't lose anything. You don't want to
Yeah,
leave anything on the table.
absolutely. Anybody who's listening to this who is thinking about being acquired, partnering with someone, merging, have your books in order. That is probably one of the biggest. And I love your suggestion as well about hiring a lawyer, an M&A lawyer. We hired an M&A lawyer. We hired an M&A accountant, and it
Definitely.
helped and made a big difference. So
And Sarah, I'm glad that you mentioned the accountant because I do think that's important as well. You might want to prepare personally as well. For us, our accountant was amazing. You know, it was like, okay, guys, let's set up holding companies. Let's set up trusts for the kids so that when you did get this influx of money, you had somewhere tax effective to put
that's
it.
right.
And hey, I don't mind paying my taxes. I'm a big fan of paying my taxes, but you also want to make sure that you're prepared personally. So make sure you're talking to an M&A accountant.
Yeah, that's great. Now, you had mentioned some people stayed, some people went, they did not stay. In your case, you stayed on, you're still with the company many years later. So tell us, why did you stay? What is it about? I mean, you have the option to go leave. You don't have to be working, but
Right,
you choose to
right.
stay and be here. Why? Why did you love? Why did you decide to be
Yeah,
part of the
it's a good
organization?
question. And it doesn't work for a lot of people, right? Like a lot of people, sometimes for me, it was I had to stay on for a year because you want to have a smooth transition. And the people who acquire, you want to make sure you want the business to do well, right? Unless it's one of those where they're just buying it to shut it down,
Right.
right? Because they're trying to take out competition. But that wasn't the case with us. They wanted Mabel's Labels to keep thriving as a brand. So I was staying on for the year. And you know what? After the year, I was still having fun. I still loved my baby Mabel. Like it's still, you still love the company. You still want the best for it. And it was still like our team. We're still in the same location and it's still our core values. So it felt very much like home. Like not a lot had changed. And some of the changes that did happen were good. Like we had more support, if we needed a really like good accountant or HR expertise, we had like a whole network to tap into from like the mothership. So there were a lot of great things about it. And as long as I'm having fun and I still get to focus on what I love, which is connecting and community and basically getting the Mabel word out there. I'm just Mabel's big cheerleader, getting out there and speaking and writing and doing media and all that jazz. So I'm having a heck of a lot of fun and they see the value in it. So it's still a love match.
I love it. That's so great. Well, I'm happy for you, and I'm glad that it's been a successful acquisition. Let's talk about the hard stuff now, because going from A to B was really challenging. Obviously, it took many, many years. It's one of the reasons I started Athena Collective, because it took a ridiculous amount of time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears to go from A to B. And I don't feel like it should have to be that difficult for women in business. But let's talk about the hard stuff. What stands out to you as someone who started a company, worked with people, raised 6 kids, one of which has autism and challenges, and I imagine takes a certain amount of attention and energy to raise into the best version of himself?
Yeah.
Himself. Is he in college now? Is he your college guy?
Yeah, he graduated. He's doing another program right now. He graduated from University of Guelph. Now he's at Humber,
Love it.
and he
Amazing.
just got hired for an internship for next year. So,
Yay,
yeah,
amazing.
excited.
So, but to get there from A to B with your family, let's talk about that. What was it like? How did you manage all of the things?
Yeah. Look, I think a couple of things. I think one is you have to have a certain personality. Like, starting a business and having 6 kids is not normal activity for most people, and it shouldn't be. You know what? Like, 2 is plenty, or like having a government job, that's good. Like, this is not. I'm not like a superhuman. I'm not spectacular in any way. It's just I've got the capacity for it for whatever reason. So, I've never been that one where like I don't think my kids have ever made me cry. Like I've never been like, I'm so worn down, you people. Like it just, and you know what? If that does happen, then don't have 6 of them. Like that's ridiculous.
Fair.
list, right? So you don't go and have sex if it is something that you don't have the capacity for, right? So it's just been, I mean, I think my perspective,
Mhm.
I don't take myself too seriously. I know my kids are going to be fine. I know, like it's all, I just keep it all in perspective, right? And I have a good attitude about it. I don't let negative thoughts take over like, I don't let the brain gremlins do their thing. I'm able to shut that down. I feel supported. I know the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats, as Babe Ruth says. So that sort of stuff doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Um, and I surround myself with great people. And that's why I'm so glad to have actually joined Athena because, surrounding yourself, particularly I think for women and who are sharing or on a similar journey, we can be such a support to each other and such a help. I think
Mhm.
even when I wrote the book, like this is the thing because no point in reinventing the wheel. If I can make something a little bit easier for somebody else, well, heck, I'm going to. And I think that's why,
Mhm.
mentoring younger entrepreneurs is so important. And I think it's something that women have always been good at. Our network is our net worth, and we make sure we use those connections. So I think that is something that's made it easier for me is staying connected, having a good perspective, not taking myself too seriously,
Mhm.
and then just and I'm not a big complainer. And getting help, like I'm okay with getting help. It
Yes.
took me a while. I'm not gonna lie. I often joke that I got a full time nanny when my fifth kid turned one. That was three kids too late. Get help. Get
Yeah.
the help. So that was a hard lesson learned. So it was, I didn't sleep for 10 years. I'm not gonna lie. I would sleep for 2 hours, get up, feed somebody, and sleep for 3 hours. It was for 10 years that happened. And we don't die martyrs for doing that stuff. So get the help if you can manage it. I did manage to. I was good with very little sleep. That was also just lucky. I have a lot of friends
Mhm.
who, if they don't get their 8 hours, they're bears. I
Right.
wasn't that guy. So it was okay. So I think you just got to know who you are, what
Mhm.
you're kind of capable of, what your limitations are, and be okay with all of it.
You had mentioned having the capacity to do all of these things. And I agree with you that some people are born into that. And some people have somehow created a system and a practice over a long period of time to be able to increase their capacity. In your case, was it more that's your natural disposition, or did you grow into it? Was there a practice that helped you turn off the monkey in your brain and say, you know what, not today? I don't need negative thoughts, not today. I'm going to surround
Yeah.
myself with the right people because I know I need to. How did you learn all of that? Or is that your natural disposition?
Look, I think I am. I think, the way I was raised, and I do think it's like a privilege to have been raised by parents who raised you to feel good about yourself and accept you for who you are, because they
Mm-hmm.
accepted me for who I was, and then also gave opportunities. And some of those opportunities were things like, not paying for things and me having to pay for things, or not, like there was a lot of opportunity there, but they were all great things because they led to lessons and they led to greater opportunities. Like I was just always finding the most ridiculous, funny things to do as I was growing up and at university. Like I would find jobs like in Europe for the summer and somehow get somebody to pay me to do it. Like I was always that guy. So, I don't know if it's like being wired a bit that way. There's definitely a genetic component. And my mom's quite a dynamo. But, there's that. And then also like there are things you learn along the way, right? Like I learned that I'm going to say no to a bunch of stuff so that I can have, the capacity to say yes to the important things. Sometimes, no's are very important. And, I have the do not do list rather than a to do list. Like I have things that I will not do because they're not in my skill set or they're not a good use of my time, or I don't feel I have the capacity. So, for instance, like I like to do community events. Am I going to go and blow up balloons all day? I'm not there yet. I don't have that kind of time to go blow up balloons for a gala, but I will MC it or I will share on my socials about it. Once I'm retired, then maybe I'll be able to blow up balloons for the day. But for now, there's ways of saying yes that fit with what you can do. And that's okay. We can give our time, we can give our treasures, we can give our talent if we want to give in certain ways, and that's going to change, and there's going to be flux in that through depending on what we have going on. I have to be productive, right? So I have a lot of little skills, a little productivity hacks that I implement in my day. And that makes it helpful. Like the other day I was like, oh, if I do this, somebody wanted to interview me for something. And I'm like, if I do that, I won't be able to go to the gym. But I was like, I can do it sweaty. So I went to the gym and I did the interview sweaty.
Perfect.
It's okay. Sometimes I make those choices so I can fit all the things in. So it all, you just have to kind of drive the ship. You're the author of your own book, write it the way you want.
Yeah, I think this is awesome advice. And for anyone who's listening, maybe the takeaway from today, although I feel like at least 15 things that you've said in the last 20 minutes, I can pull apart and create its own podcast about. But I'll say for anyone for today who's listening, I'd say to help create capacity to do the things you should be doing and that you love doing and that you're great at doing, and you're a superhuman at doing, say no to the things that are preventing you from creating that capacity. Say yes to the things that are giving you that boost and are giving you the capacity.
No's can lead to really great yeses.
There you go. Great gold nugget for today. I want to talk a little bit about your book because you wrote a book. Tell us about your book. What did you write? What's it about? Right. What are you trying to do to help people with it?
Okay. Yeah. So I wrote a book called, where is it? Like a Mother, Birthing Businesses, Babies, and a Life Beyond Labels. And it's just full of life hacks, business hacks, mom hacks. And it came about because it's kind of been on my list of, I got to write something. People are like, when are you writing the book? So then when COVID happened, then suddenly, I'm not flying out to conferences, not going to speaking engagements. And I thought, I had 2 kids at university who were sent home. I had a house full of kids. And I was just like, okay, well, maybe this is my time. If I don't write the book now, when am I going to? Mm-hmm. So I just used that opportunity like so many people did. So many women particularly did during lockdown, during COVID, and they picked up their side hustle or they launched something. There were some really neat things that came out of women during that time. And for me, it was the book.
Awesome. And so if people want to check out your book, where can people buy it?
You know what? They can buy it at any of the usual places, but definitely you can go to Amazon. And if you go to mabelslabels.com/Julie Cole, there's links to like all my stuff there, including the book.
Amazing. I appreciate that. And so to wrap up today, because I know you got to go, you've got a busy schedule. I appreciate that you said yes to us. Thank you for the yes. So Julie, what is next for you then? You've done the family, you've raised 6 kids, you've built this incredible e-commerce company that's become a household brand, and you've built community, you've written a book, you've keynote spoken around. What do you want to do next?
You know what? I'm good right where I am. Right now, Sarah, I'm just like living my best life and I'm good. People often say, what, if you could tell your younger self something, what would you say? And I'm always like, just keep doing what you're doing. And I'd say that to myself now. As long as I'm having fun, I'm contributing, I'm enjoying, I'm giving back, and my kids are healthy and well, I'm okay.
I love that so much. Well, I appreciate you being here on the show. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled that you've joined the Athena Collective community as well. So we're excited to cheer each other on and build community together and make a positive difference in the world. And looking forward to seeing you around. If anyone wants to contact you with opportunities or questions, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah. So, I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, I'm in all the places, but again, all that stuff will be on that mabelslabels.com/Julie Cole. So find me there. And thank you again, Sarah, for having me. This has been so much fun, such great questions, and I'll see you over at the Athena Collective.
Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for listening in. Thanks, Julie. Thanks for listening to the 4 Female Founders podcast series. If you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe, like, or comment below so we can continue to support women in business by helping them thrive, not just survive. We'll see you on the next show.